Hi everyone, it is Sunday the 21st of June 2020 and I'm having a look at the global indices. I'm starting off with the US indices, specifically Wall Street. So it could be argued it's significant that we have a lower high this coming week on the daily chart. Alright, so if we look at the weekly, there is, although it's a very kind of the angle of this is almost unsustainable, it is an uptrend. It has also arguably produced a slightly small bullish indecision candle near significant weekly support. So in isolation, that looks quite bullish. Then looking at the monthly, there's no clear additional clue to that. Now looking at the daily in isolation, we have produced a swing high. This is not a change in trend. We could still find support at this level and move up and recover and then continue on upwards. However, so the way that I'm going to approach this is really that I'm going to be monitoring the lows of this period and the highs. So in other words, if price is going to continue on upwards, it'll potentially find support in this area. And this is something that I can be looking at Monday, Tuesday on the 4-hour time frame. That'll give me enough clarity on it to see if it finds support, turns around, heads up and breaks the high. It's then likely to potentially make another run up to these previous highs. At the same time, should price break the low, then of course I'm going to anticipate more aggressive moves to the downside and caution around these key levels. There will be buy orders sitting at these levels. There will be bounces off them, but then that starts to paint a picture where we're starting to fail at these highs up here, and we're starting to we may then encounter another significant move to the downside. So that's really what I'm going to be watching for. It will be these recent highs and lows and looking to see how this goes. This is a confirmed swing high, but this is not a change in trend. So in other words, this now, all it has really done is put the option on the table as to the market is undecided and it's going to pick a direction. Again, so I've highlighted the highs and lows on the S&P. This is what I'm going to be watching for. The current immediate price action looks bearish, but it is not an indication of, to me yet, of the future, or at least the shorter term future looks a little bit more bearish, but the market has done this before and recovered relatively quickly. And so I'm just commenting that we have a lower high, which means there could be a potential change in trend if we break these lows. And so this is what I'll be looking for in the coming days. Now we do also know from experience, or at least I've seen this, is obviously if we move down a lot faster. And so we could even find that we head down just, even overnight, over the next 24 to 48 hours. By Tuesday, Monday, we've kind of started to break low. Then I start to look at these key levels and I'll look for shorter opportunities, almost probably on the 1-hour time frame will give me some really good trends if that's going to be the case. There were some great trends, shorting opportunities for me on the 1-hour time frames here. So that's something I'll be looking at if we do start to break the low, and as we start to head towards it, that'll start to develop on that side, especially if there is institutional selling. It'll start to probably reveal itself in the price action here like it did recently, week before last. So that's something to keep on the table. Noting here, if I look at the NASDAQ, that we have produced a bit of a bearish rejection here. I'm going to call it 10,000. So I'm going to focus on the round number here, although it is closer on the chart so far to 10,100. I'm going to focus on the round number here, 10,000, as being a potential challenge. Prices pull back a bit, still producing a bullish candle. What it does tell me, at least here, is that there are buyers in this area. There just may not be enough buyers above this to carry it on through. And of course, this is a good guide as to what is the strength of the market. So should the market here start to head down and certainly break these lows, there is support here at 9,500. If it starts to break lower than that, that starts to lean towards a bigger drop or a bigger move down. Again, price is, I would consider this overextended from the moving averages on the monthly time frame. Certainly in terms of distance, not that far away from the previous correction we had, which also implies that if we have another correction here, it will then likely be as big as this previous one potentially, or at least close to that kind of a size. It will be a significant drop if we do get that back down towards 8,500, which puts us down around about here on the daily. So that is kind of looking at that to the downside. Moving on to the Russell 2000. Again, we've got bearish price action here, but we are not getting a clarification yet. Price could easily recover here and then continue and resume the uptrend. So I'll be monitoring this. I can just see here, look at the FTSE. It's encountering resistance. I'm going to call it, you could say 6,200, but 6240. The weekly, is sitting at support at 6,000 with a bullish candle. Okay, so there are signs here that there are certainly buys in the market above 6,000, but potentially not much further than that. On the weekly, of course, it has connected with the previous low, and this is a really nice sweet spot for it to find resistance. And potentially over the next week, this is even a scenario, potentially, that it makes a move up and then by the end of the week has produced bearish rejection. So in other words, it manages to recover and then fails again. And then it's very likely, or much more likely in that case, that the following week, which is next week, which will be the final week of the month, we could see a big move down. So I'm looking for both, and currently it sits between the either situation. Again, we have an uptrend on the weekly and a bullish candle here within the moving averages, implying that if we break the high, we will continue on upwards. But the daily now showing us that it's pausing at least, and it has produced a lower high. And so that's the implication, but it actually hasn't confirmed which way it wants to go. And this is the risk. I don't want to assume a position. I'm going to be incredibly cautious. I'm going to sit on the sidelines until I start to see some indication of this. And of course, recently we've seen that it's very aggressive. Even on the Sunday night open, in other words, in the Asian Tokyo session, we see an immediate move to the downside. And so that can be an indication of it. But what I've also noticed here is that we have plenty of buyers at these key levels. There's no shortage. The moves, in other words, there is no tipping point. We haven't reached that tipping point yet. We still kind of have buyers in the market, and so that's just why I'm so cautious. Again, looking at the Hang Seng, no doubt encountering strong resistance here at 24,500 as well as 25,000. So this is an issue here. This one is showing it certainly is finding strong resistance at this level, which was previously support. So when I veer away from the US markets, I start to see signs of maybe we've encountered a bit of a ceiling, but it is just not, it's just too early to tell, but it certainly might indicate that we might now start potentially seeing that. So some traders like to use trend lines. I'm not massive fan of them myself, but it does mean that potentially, let's say, for example, on the ASICs, we use the head and shoulders here. The implication being that if we break this, that we might then have a move down, which is roughly equivalent to this, which puts us down at around about this support level, and that's certainly a possibility. I would prefer to see a break of the low. All right, so in other words, I'll be looking at all of these concurrently and looking for the NASDAQ really to lead the way, probably focusing on Wall Street, S&P, and NASDAQ to really guide me on that. But the Asian sessions will give an early indication of how the markets are overall going to react. So it's common sense. I'm really going to wait for a little bit more evidence. I'm keeping an open mind. The market is generally, we're still we have unexpected bullishness, and therefore it can continue to be unexpectedly bullish or irrationally bullish. Let's put it that way. That's the best explanation for it. At the same time, this is showing a sign that it may be looking to head low, and there might be shorting opportunities. But as usual, there are still buyers at the lower levels, and therefore I'm more aggressive with regards to taking profits, and I'm more cautious with stop losses and so on and so forth. So there is just some caution advised, and as I said, there is just general economic instability and insecurity, as well as just wariness globally. So this is why looking at this and just taking those precautions. But those are the price levels I'm looking at, and I'll be interested to see how the week unfolds.